You are listening to the On Purpose podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the show this week. Life is good. I am recording today from Bahia de Los Angeles and Baja, Mexico. One of the things I love about this lifestyle is we're completely off grid, recording via solar power. I'm looking out the window. There's whales splashing in the bay out in front of us, and I can't do all this without you guys. So I thank you for being part of our podcast and our community and helping keep us inspired. I want to thank you for that. Right, you guys inspire me hopefully as much as our guests and our stories inspire you. So thank you for being part of the community. And then I have an ask, if you would. YouTube is now streaming podcast. So take a moment, go over to YouTube, the On Purpose podcast, and subscribe to our page. That would help us. It doesn't cost anything, but it would help us greatly continue to promote our show and meet our goal of becoming the most impactful podcast in the world. This week, I'm excited to talk with a young lady, and she's awesome. Just researching her, I got really excited because she's my age, and she's gone through 3 different careers. Emmy Awards for Olympic coverage with NBC Sports, 19 years as a preschool special education teacher, and now she's living her life as an author, and she didn't even lean into the author thing except for a promise that she made to her son before he went off to college, that she was going to write. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Wendy Haller as we talk about embracing change in life, letting go of who we used to be to become who we are, and just having a good time with each other. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's conversation with Wendy Haller. Wendy, my new friend, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, I appreciate it. It's a blessing, and it's funny. We were talking before we started recording how paths cross at certain times, and that's one of the things you were talking about, maybe traveling later in life. And one of the things I love about the traveling world is that if I'm in motion and you're in motion, and the earth is in motion, and we all meet, that's a sign that I'm supposed to learn something, or I'm supposed to share something. And that's kind of how I feel today. Like, there was a reason we met at this point after some of the other episodes we've done. So I'm excited to have you here and get to share our story with your story with our community.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I couldn't agree more. Um, I always like to think, and I'll say that everyone that I've encountered in my life, whether good or bad, has helped me to become the person I am today. And you know what? I kind of like this person. And so,
Yeah.
and that's kind of, I'm an author, and my first book that I published was a book of poetry, and it was, Kiss You Love Goodbye is the name of it, A Poetic Journey Through Life. And it's really about evolving.
Mm.
In your On Purpose podcast, it's like our purpose changes, and things that, we may plan don't always work out, but our purpose can change. Like right now, I'm on my 3rd career. I did not expect that to happen, you know, and at the same time, I embrace the journey, see where it's going to lead you. And it's just so interesting. I turned 50 last summer, and um, I don't know, just evolving into this part of my life. I don't know. It just seems
Mm.
easier.
What do you?
It seems easier.
All right. Before we get going, I'm going to give you some warm up questions too.
Yeah.
But because I definitely want, that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about with you was changing the careers.
Mhm.
And exactly, it's funny you say you embrace the change, because literally I have a question up here: is how did you embrace the change? So we even word it the same, because I think sometimes people get stuck when they try to hold on to something instead of
Mhm.
allowing themselves to
Oh, yeah.
evolve. So I definitely want to talk with you about that. But first, I got to warm you up. I like to know some
Okay,
little
let's do it.
trivial things here.
All right.
All right, you ready, Wendy?
Yes.
All right, first one: coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
What kind of tea?
It depends on my mood. I change a lot. I like oolong. I like English breakfast. I chamomile at night. I'm a big tea drinker. I
Mm,
like, yeah,
okay.
but I need coffee to get me going in the morning. I am not a morning person.
All right. Brunch or dinner? Which
Oh,
mixed
brunch,
meal? Brunch. Okay.
brunch.
All
Don't
right.
even have to think about it. Love all the things about brunch. Could eat brunch for all the meals.
Sunrises or sunsets?
Oh, sets.
Why?
I don't know. I just like I love the colors. Even the colors in the morning are great,
Mm,
but I love the colors at the end of the day. I also enjoy just that calming feeling that seeing a sunset at the end of the day can bring, that no matter what the day has been, you can just sit and see a sunset and it's just so grounding and so calming. And, tomorrow's a new day.
that's a good one. All right.
Mhm.
Reading physical books or listening to audiobooks?
Oh, that's tough for me. I am definitely all the modalities. Um, I guess I'd say oh gosh, that's so hard. I really do use
Like right
audio
before bed, are you reading a book or you got your tablet?
of reading a book.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually I take that back. I do now. I do use my tablet because my husband would have when he'd go to bed, he'd like take my glasses off, take my book, but I'd lose the spot. But
Oh.
now with the tablet, it saves the page.
Yeah.
So
See
I
that
don't
that's embracing the change right there. That's a simple
exactly,
example.
exactly.
All right. When
Yeah.
you need to get your mind right, you're trying to get creative. Are you going to silence? Are you putting on music?
Oh, music.
What's your
Yeah.
song?
I oh gosh, it depends on what mood that I'm looking for. I love singer-songwriters.
Mhm.
I'm definitely more into the folksier or yeah, the singer-songwriters of Mice and Men. I like Paper Kites.
Mm,
I'm also a certified yoga teacher, so I'll go into some of that
right.
melodic
Yeah.
sounds. Yeah, I have certain like I cleaned a Steely Dan and Fleetwood Mac.
Uh,
But I like, especially if I need to like to get in a creative mindset,
yeah.
going for a walk.
Mm,
I get inspired by a
love
good
it.
singer-songwriter, like a Jim Croce,
Mm,
photographs and memories, man, that can inspire anything.
there you go. I love it. Now,
Yeah.
and you mentioned you just turned 50. Do
Hmm.
you think, because I'm 51 now. Do you think something changes in mindset hitting that number?
Oh yeah.
What,
I,
'cause I
I,
haven't been able to put my finger on, it, but I just feel like I think a little differently.
yeah.
What do you think
I
it
think
is?
that you let go of inhibitions in that you let go of inhibitions in like uh, like I like to say like that like my poetry book was went from who am I to this is who I am. So it's like this is who I am, let go of inhibitions. I'm not afraid of not I lived for a very long time wanting to people please, especially my parents, my father especially. And now I'm just like, you know what, Dad, I have tattoos. Get over it. But that's what I mean. Like I was
Yeah.
terrified forever for him and his, take and now,
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't know about all of them, but he knows I have them now. But I mean, it's just letting go of those inhibitions to people please or having those built-in expectations that you were raised with, being able to let go
Mm,
and then just embrace who you want to be is so freeing. Like, you know what?
yeah.
No, I don't feel that way, or I don't believe that, or I want to do this for me, and I'm sorry if you don't approve. It's very freeing when you get to an age where you're like, I just don't care anymore what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that could be it for sure. And this sounds might be weird, but
Yeah, tell
I
me.
think there's something about our mortality too, right? Like I
Hmm.
think in the teens, you're like, I don't know if I'll live to 35 because 35 felt so old as a teenager, right? And then in your
Yeah.
And then your 20s, you're like, 60s is so far away. Like everything seems so far away. And then you hit like 50. And for me, it's been interesting because like people I had careers with that were
Yeah.
older than me in my career, I'm starting to see someone pass on already, right? They're
Mm.
like they were at the 20-year mark when I was a rookie. So they're 20 years older than me. I think there's a mortality that sets in to be like, wait a second, man, I'm on the back end of my ride. Like I don't have time to waste, like you said, pleasing everybody else. I got to figure out what the hell I want to do and enjoy
Yeah,
this ride.
exactly. Yeah, what are you gonna do with your one precious life? If you don't believe in reincarnation.
Right.
And it's so true. And there is something about, I would agree with you with immortality. And I think when it really started to sink in was I have a really close group of college friends. We've all been together 30 plus years. And it really started to sink in when one of our
Hmm.
parents passed,
Right.
and then another parent passed. And it's like, okay, this is like my friend that I used to party in college with. We went through all the stages of our 20s, our meeting our people, having children or careers or more careers and
Right.
gaining weight, balding, all the changes. Moving, relocating, and all this. And so being with people through all these stages, or even just observing people through the stages, even if you're just observing yourself, I think you're right. I think you get to a point where you look at that next half of your life and think, what do I want to do with it? Where do I want to go with this? And what's going to make me happy? What's going to make my end game being able to look back and be like, I never wanted to be a coulda, shoulda, woulda person,
Sure.
so how can you embrace this, second part of your life? And again, like I said, letting go
Yeah.
of some inhibitions. I mean, it's not like, things don't creep in and stuff because that's just how we're built, where you're second guess or
Yeah.
especially when you're a parent, you're like, okay, shouldn't I stay one place for my kids to always have a
Mm.
place to come home to? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, wherever you are, that's their home.
It's funny you say that because when we were so similar situation, you guys, our youngest graduated in 2021,
Mhm.
and we were going to keep up. We had a property near our university, Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. That if she wanted to go to school, we could have kept it and turned it into a rental and had the whole roommate experience. But she didn't want to go to school. And our other two had already moved off. So we sold our house. And that's the same question a lot of people ask us. It's like, oh my God, where are your kids going to come home to? And ironically for us, we feel more connected to our kids traveling because every time they show up, we're all in a new place. We all have a new
Ah,
experience.
that is so cool.
And
Yeah.
we've seen our adult kids more without a permanent house. And
Yeah.
a lot of our friends have because they're excited to come be like, oh, you're at Joshua Tree. Let me find you in California, or wherever the hell we are, some lake in Arizona.
Yeah, yeah.
So I, I think you're right on that. I think it's just the spirit, right? Like you get to this point, you're like, okay, I'm going to be free because I've
Yeah.
done a lot of living for other people, which you have to, right? If you're going to have kids, you're going to give up
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
years where
Yeah.
life is not about you.
Mhm.
And now you're like, okay, let me see, let me see if I still got it. I got to get out in the world and go a little bit.
And I remember there's one particular, it's so funny. I remember it was a Saturday afternoon and I think my husband likes to cycle and he was out cycling and the kids were older and off doing their own thing. And I'm walking around my house and I'd done all the chores and all the things I needed to get done on a Saturday. And I'm walking around going, oh my gosh, what do I do with myself? Like I've lived for them for so long. What do I like to do? What do I enjoy doing? And I can start to do that now. Like what do I want to do? And are the things that I used to enjoy doing what I enjoy now?
Mm,
And it was kind of like rediscovering me
I love it.
and rediscovering like or discovering new things. And even like my husband and I, um we're pretty outdoorsy people to what we can. I have some physical limitations now, but we started playing disc golf And it would be like, okay, there's a brewery up the road. We go play disc golf. We come back and we have a beer.
Love it.
What a great day,
Let me, Wendy, let me ask you this because I think you said something that it was at least key in our world, and that was because my wife went through the same thing. We had a big house, nobody was ever home.
Yeah,
We had a couple businesses, and so I was working a lot. The kids are teenagers, so the last
yeah,
place they want to be is home. They're out.
yeah.
And same thing. She walked around. I was like, why do I have this big house? I'm all by myself. But something you said that really struck me is she didn't just start thinking of things she could do. She thought of things we could do because,
Yes.
and you mentioned sitting with your husband and coming up with ideas. And I think that's the key, right? Is growing together in this new phase of your life.
Because you've already been doing the parenting thing, but kind of you're rediscovering your own individuality. And at the same time, you're rediscovering each other. Like, what are
Yeah.
our interests? What do we want to do? You know,
Yeah.
and going to like taking the time, like we love to go to concerts and live shows, just from even
Mm,
local bands.
yeah.
And like, oh, this is so fun. Like just taking out our lawn chairs or, our camping chairs and going down to the green in our town and just listening to some live music. Like, wow,
Yeah.
this is so cool. Like, just kind of that reconnection and just finding new ways to enjoy each other's company.
And I think that's amazing, right? And I think that same mindset is probably what allowed you to make the career changes you made. You weren't holding on to what was to the
Yeah.
point you can't become what's going to be.
Yeah. I will say though, the transition out of teaching, because I did it for 19 years, that was harder.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a mourning period, a bit of a what do I do now? Who am I now? Because I was a teacher for so long. It's like, what do who are you? I'm a teacher. What do you do? I'm a teacher.
Right.
So it was like such a part of my identity and it
Yes.
consumed. I brought my work home with me, as most teachers do, and it consumed so much. And then also being a teacher, I'm on my kids' schedule as well. So having the same school schedule as them. And come September, this past September, when all my teacher friends went back to work and I wasn't able to, it was, you have a little bit of guilt,
Yeah.
like the mom guilt, I had teacher guilt.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should be going back to the classroom, but I'm not. Um,
Yeah.
and it's kind of accepting. I think the biggest change for this part, when I went from working in broadcast television to into teaching, that wasn't such a hard switch because I was traveling so much for work and we had just had our son, who's our oldest, and I'm like, I don't want to miss out on his life.
Right.
Like I don't want we had a college babysitter. I'm like, I don't want her seeing him crawling for the first time. And, there were just things like, this is what I want to do so that I can be more present for my family,
Yeah.
and obviously it was a wonderful decision because I taught for 19 years, but having, when you're told you can't physically do things, when you're so used to
Sure.
being able to, that is something to accept, is your physical limitation. So there were a couple of things happening, I think, at the time for me, is I was learning to accept that my body is not able to do the things it once was able to.
Hmm.
And also leaving teaching.
So
But
how did
go
you
ahead.
let me ask you, how did you handle that guilt? Because I think a lot of people feel that whatever they're transitioning from to, there
Yeah.
is like a little bit of guilt or just a little struggle to put yourself first again, right? When you've put other people
Yeah.
first for so long, you almost feel, I guess it is guilt. You feel guilty being, maybe
Yeah.
I'm selfish if I put me first at this stage in
Yeah.
my life. How did you work through that? Talk us through that.
I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. And I'm sure anybody we all go through things. And I had about a month of, pity party, depression, whatever you want to call it, feeling sad. And then I had to find my purpose. Like, okay, I can sit here and be miserable, or I can figure out how to make the body I have now. I'm riddled with arthritis.
Okay.
Um, I have psoriatic arthritis. I just my body fights against each other. I have celiac, so I'm an inflammation mess most of the days. And it was like, okay, I can sit here and be sad, and what is that going to serve? What am I going to gain from that? And I'm like, and then I'm just wasting my time, wasting my days. Or I could find my new purpose. I could find a purpose to where I am at now. And I've been a yoga instructor now for about 7 years. I had to stop teaching for a while, and I really miss the community. I
Sure.
miss um just the overall feeling that you get when you're in a practice, even if I can't physically do the practice, just being in the space. And so I was able to, after about 6 months, go back to teaching. So even if I can't physically do the postures with the students, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm sharing space. We're breathing together. I'm getting in a better mental
Yeah.
space, and even if it's like so right now had stopped teaching for a while. I'm teaching about 4 gentle classes now. And so they're over different days. And it's like that 1 hour just is so healing.
Yeah.
Even though I'm the instructor, it's so healing because it gets me in a better mental space by just being there.
Yeah.
But and as far as a purpose for career, I'd always so my first my undergrad was in journalism. My master's degree is in education. So I'm going backwards in my degrees. And so I had made a promise to my son when he went to college. He's like, "Mom, I want you to write. I want you to
Mm,
write. Just keep writing, and don't stop writing." And I had always just done it for me. It was just
sure.
my thing, my own art, my outlet. And so when I got over my sadness and was like, "Okay, I need to find purpose. What am I going to do?" I went and I collected my poetry from my thumb drive and my journals and like my college stuff and all of these different places. Like I had so many different journals with like a couple pages written
Yeah.
in it, and then another cutesy journal with a few pages. But I started gathering them and putting them together into one document and printed it all out, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is my journey, like this is my life. Like the beginning in the first chapter, it's all about those late teens, early 20s, where who am I? Where do I fit in this world? Where do I belong? And trying to discover yourself. And then it travels into, you know, your it's love, loss, grief, figuring out who you want in your life.
Mm,
Those like who really feeds my soul? Do I want this person? Is this a healthy relationship? And being, when you have to accept that, what, this relationship doesn't work for me, whether it's a friend, whether it's a partner, whatever. Even family, some families, you just gotta draw some boundaries
sure.
because you're
Yeah.
just not healthy for me.
Right.
And then like, finding my husband, I'm like, oh, that's what your name was gonna be. Like that's who you and then now being 50, and it's so funny, the last chapter is me like turning, like in those last couple of years before turning 50, and it's like all about evolving, sitting in silence. It's all
Yeah.
of those things that we've been talking about. And one of them is, I am not my disease. I'm not
Mm,
going to let this disease control me and become it's one part of my whole being.
yeah.
And so that's kind of how the authorship started. Is I went and I published that, and then I was a teacher for 19 years, that I wrote 2 children's books, and now I finished my first novel. It's in editing phase. It'll be released this spring. I'm working on my second, and it's like I have a new purpose, and it's a
Yeah.
dream I always had for myself and didn't believe enough in myself to do it.
Mm. Let me ask you this question. Um, you made a promise to your son.
Mhm.
Talk me through that conversation of promising your son you would do something, because I think there's great value in that. A lot of times, as parents, our kids look up to us.
Yeah.
I think there's great strength when we get to a point where we look up to our children.
Yeah. I'm inspired. My son is in college in New York City, and he's studying filmmaking. And yeah, I'm inspired by him all the time, and in my daughter as well. But
Yeah, and I think
it
let me.
it does make your children make you want to be a better person. I mean, it just is what it is. I would hope
I
that
think you're right.
your children make you want to be a better person, and you also want to lead by example.
Right.
So having internally always wanted to be an author and not vocalize it, having my son recognize and call me out on
Sure.
it in a
Yeah.
very nice way, he did, but it was just one of those things where I had just gone up to his room probably to collect dishes, because that's usually what I'm doing when I go to his room. Yeah, like,
Right.
we're out of cups. Can I
Right.
please, but he was getting ready to move into his dorm, and we were just having a conversation, and that's what he just kind of sat me down and said, "I want you to make me a promise."
Mm.
And you never know what your kids are going to come out with.
No.
So, and then he said, "I want you to promise me that you'll write every day while I'm at college. I want you to promise me that you will write every day. And when I come home from Christmas break, I want to see what you've done."
Oh, wow.
And by the time he got home for Christmas break, I didn't have anything. I mean, I
Uh,
had the stuff that I had done because I write a lot of poetry for myself.
sure.
Um, but I had a little bit, and I've shared my stuff with my family, like when we go on vacation, I get inspired or whatever, and I'll be like, "Oh, look what I wrote," or whatever, or
Right.
something. And I kind of felt like I needed to do better.
Mm.
I'm like, "Please don't ask me, please don't ask me, please don't ask me what I have." And he didn't bring it up at all. And then at the end of January, I'd already been home and out of work for about a month, and I started put stuff together, and I called him up and I go, "Matthew, I think I have a book." And he's
Nice.
like, "Good, now make it happen." I was like, "Okay." Yeah, so it kind of, yeah. So, but it was good. It was one of those things where it was like the good kick in the pants that I needed. And then when I had released my book, I had told my family, who had no idea I was doing it, like other than my immediate family, like my parents,
Yeah.
my brother, sister-in-law, they had no idea. And then I like texted my like family group chat, "Oh, by the way, I have a book released on Amazon." And I was just not comfortable to like make it public, but then my brother posted on social media, "So proud of my sister," and then new published author, and he ripped that Band-Aid off
Mm.
and put it out there, and I was like, "Oh, okay. So yeah, okay, I guess I can tell people now." But
Yeah.
it's kind of like sometimes you do need that little push. I don't know, fear gets
Yeah.
in the way sometimes, and it's
I
so
love it.
ridiculous, you
Yeah,
know?
it is, but it's also necessary, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you weren't afraid, would you have put out such a good book, right? Or would you? Because I'm assuming fear, like for me, like fear makes me double check things, right? I don't want to. I'm afraid of
Yes.
being judged, so I'm not just gonna put out the
Yes.
first thing. Like it's because if I don't have fear, I usually don't care. Like if
Yeah.
I'm being blunt, like I just don't care. Like I'm not. Yeah, just throw something out. But if I have a little bit of fear of not necessarily being judged, but just being fear of like this is my name, and this is good. A book's gonna
Yeah.
stay around a long time. And
Yeah.
you don't want to be the one person that everybody's like, look, the worst book in history was written by this guy. Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy.
Well, and it's also proving to yourself, like, I can do this.
For sure.
And I can do better. I can do my best. And I used to always say that to my students, do your best and I'll love it. Just do your best.
Mm,
But I love that acronym for fear. It's face everything and rise.
yeah.
And I think that's that um
Yeah.
changing of your thought process. Like, yes, like you said, sometimes, thing. And you're right, it is a good thing because it makes you face it and rise above that.
Right. And it makes you care, right? Like if I don't
Yeah,
care, I wouldn't have fear. I wouldn't be afraid of something if I didn't care about it,
yeah,
right? I wouldn't be um and I think we got to shift our mindset a little bit, and we definitely got to teach. And that's one of the things I really love working with young people about is it's okay to be afraid.
yeah,
One, it's okay to be afraid, and two, it's okay to tell somebody you're afraid.
yeah,
Because as soon as we start
absolutely.
talking about it, now we can process through it. And that's what I loved about your story there is you had a month after leaving school where you were down and you said,
Yeah,
I was down. I didn't know. And then I think that's okay to experience all the emotions, right? We're human
yes,
beings. We're not always supposed to be sunshine and rainbows. Like it's supposed to be
absolutely.
cloudy and gloomy some days.
Yeah,
And when we give ourselves permission to stay there, to feel it, to
yeah.
understand it, to learn,
Mhm.
and then we got to move on.
Yeah, and honor yourself, like, give yourself some grace, honor yourself, like, "This
Yes.
is how I'm feeling today, and that's okay. If I have to just, like, sit on the couch all day, and that's okay, and then get over it and move on." But just have some grace with yourself, and, with what I'm going through with my physical body, it's I'm not gonna lie, I mean, it's hard
Sure.
when I have, like, in my head, like, "I'm gonna do all this stuff today," and then I wake up and my knees don't wanna work and my fingers and I'm all swollen in my neck, and I have, like, days that I can't even put on my wedding ring because my knuckles are so swollen, and I'm like, "Okay, you know what? That's gonna have to wait another day, and that's
Mm,
okay." And
yeah.
accepting that, you know what? That's okay for today. So what can I do?
Mm.
You know, what
What did finding the confidence to release your book, how did it impact other areas of your life?
oh, that's a good question.
And here's where I'm going with that. What
Yeah.
I like to call creating momentum, right?
Mhm.
If I have doubts today and I don't face these doubts, and I just try to distract myself from the doubts. Well, tomorrow, the doubts might be stronger because I didn't deal with them today, and they might
Mhm.
continue. Like it creates momentum. However, on the flip side, if I'm afraid of something and I do it, a lot of
Yeah.
times that creates momentum. Now I want to do something else that I might have been afraid of. Right.
Yes.
So how would you say the ripple effect of your confidence played out?
I so releasing my first book, it opened a floodgate of creativity that probably was there, but again, fear held it back. And like I've always created stories and I've always had a vivid imagination, but again, to myself.
Mhm.
And I'm not a good sleeper, and so my both my children's books that were released, I wrote on my notes app in the middle of the night. And I do that a lot. Like so the Flanagan Girls, which is coming out this spring, so many of those scenes were written on my notes app in various places, which is how I do my poetry as well, whenever I the spur of the moment of inspiration. But what was interesting was when I decided that I wanted to try writing a novel or to write a novel, another
Mm,
layer of fear came in. I can write short form poetry, children's book 20 pages. Great, easy.
right.
Can I really write long form? Am I capable of writing long form? Who do I think I am to
Yeah.
be able to? And so there was that other layer of that. And in November, there's like this national writing collaborative, I'll call it, called NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And a lot of authors, it's a website,
Mm,
50,000 word goal. You start on November. So you spend, the early parts of the fall prepping and getting ready. And I had started writing the novel last summer and I got about 35,000 words in and I kind of threw in the towel. I kind of reached a point where I was like road blocking myself in that it just wasn't going the direction. I was just struggling with the storyline. And so when this novel writing month was coming up, the three sisters, I thought it was going to be about the youngest sister and her husband and their dynamic. And the three sisters just started telling their story to me. And I was going for walks and again, listening to music. Sitting in silence does it too for
Sure.
me. But a lot of times it's just being out in nature or again, listening to good songwriters, or I start reading a book and
Yeah.
then my mind would wander into my own head. I'd be holding the book, but in my head, I'm not reading anything. I'm just like, my mind is playing out
Hmm.
the story like a movie in my head. And so I just buckled down the month of November and I wrote 50,000 words. And next thing I knew, I was at 60,000. And when I got to the end of it, and it was a rough first draft, but I was like, oh my gosh, I just wrote long form and it flowed. Like it got to a point, it's almost like, and trust me, I'm not a runner anymore, but I remember when I was running, and I would be like, okay, I'm done. This is too much. I'm like, okay, just push past this and then I'll be okay. So
Right.
after you get past the first mile, I'm like, okay, now I'm in my rhythm
Hmm.
and I'm going and I'm moving and I'm okay. I've got the 5K. And that's all I ever did was a 5K. And I was fine with that. But there was a point in my life I wanted to know what it was like. My husband's a runner. He's done half marathons. He did a full marathon. And I'm like, I want to know what it's like to cross a finish line.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
like the whole time I'm running, I'm like, I hate running. I hate this, just stare down at your feet, one foot in front of the other.
Uh,
But then you get past like, okay, I've done 1 mile. All right, just
yeah.
keep going. So I feel like the writing the book was almost kind of the same way,
Mm.
whereas like as soon as I got into my rhythm and got past the everything having to be perfect, just right. If you don't know what to say here, skip, go to the next thing. And it did, it just started to flow. I kind of went on a tangent, but did
No,
you
I love it. I,
question?
I love it. No, it's a great answer. And I think you hit on another thing that really inhibits people is that idea that there is perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I mean, is there? Is there perfect?
No, and it's interesting. I was taking a writing class in the fall, a writing workshop, and it took my writing coach to give me permission. Like, you don't know what's coming next. Move on. Do you know what's going to happen after that? Well, keep going. Just
Right.
keep going. And I'm like, why does it take someone giving me permission to know that that's okay?
That's interesting, right? But I think it's a value of having coaches in your life, right? People
Yeah.
that have a different expertise that can encourage you and push you along. Um, but yeah, that's an interesting thing that we put so much pressure on this perfection that we
Mm.
don't take the chances we should. And I think maybe that going all the way back to the beginning, hitting 50,
Yeah.
you realize like, boy, I didn't goof like I made it this far, so I'm clearly doing something right.
Doing something right.
So maybe I don't have to be perfect to keep going. And maybe you get a real sense that there is no perfect.
Yeah. And I think especially having been a yoga teacher for as long as I have, and that's something we always say to our students,
Hmm.
i- your body changes each day. Where you are, how you're feeling in your body changes each day. So your form, your posture, it's not gonna be perfect. So where you are right now is exactly where you're meant to be.
Mm.
Yeah, so if I'm doing a posture with my students and one of them can put their arms fully over their head, one can only come here, and one needs to keep them lower because they're having shoulder issues, that's where you are today, and that's perfect
Mm.
for you. Like it's okay,
Yeah. And that's
you know?
life, right? Where we are
Yeah.
right now is exactly where we're supposed to be.
Exactly.
And I
And like
think,
we
go
said
ahead.
before, it's like in all of the people that we encounter in our lives and the experience if we have had have made us into or have brought us to where we are and made us into this person and good or bad,
Both.
it's all part of the journey. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Both. And I love that you said that because I think that's one of the things that we can do much better of and that traveling for me is allowed is much more intentionality,
Yeah.
right? Like I literally can be here with you because I don't have anywhere else to be. I don't have any other thing, right? And being where we are is important
Yeah.
because each time we meet, there's a moment, right? Like if I
Yeah.
talk to you again next week, Wendy, we're different people.
Absolutely. When we never, and the conversation could be completely different than the one in here. And, that's when, like, going back to when I was taken out of work for medical reasons and feeling sad and having to get over it. And yes, I'm not, I remember I'm not capable to do the things that I once was. And I love to paddleboard. And
Okay.
I remember I went one time last summer, the one time I was able to go, and I had to stay down on my knees. I couldn't stand up. It was too much on my joints. But I paddleboarded on my knees and I was
Yeah.
out on that river and it felt amazing. And it's those little moments that's like, okay, I'm meeting myself where I am right now.
I love it. And I think that's so healthy, right? Like, especially as we age, we hold on to these ideas of who we used to be. And I
Yeah.
used to be able to do that. So now that I can't do it the way I used to, I'm not going to do any of it. And I think
Yeah.
that your mindset and what you're sharing there is what keeps you young, right?
Yeah.
Who cares if I can't do what 18-year-old Jerrod did? I can still do
Yeah.
what today Jerrod can do.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
better
and
than not
that's
doing anything.
absolutely. And I saw my dad, and my dad also has the same the psoriatic, it's genetic,
Okay.
so he has it and his mother had it, um, but I saw him struggle with that, and I
Mhm.
don't know if it's because he's from that generation of, I'm the breadwinner, and I'm the father, and I'm the husband, and it could just be that mentality that he was raised in, but I just saw him struggle with that loss of strength and
Mm.
loss of ability to do the things he once was. And and he was a welder, and he was down in building submarines on his, and his knees are all a mess and his neck's all a mess. And but I see him now and I'm like, he's retired, he's living his best life, he loves to fish. He's always out fishing. If he can go on his boat, great. If he can't because he can't put the boat in the water, he's fishing from the shore. And it's like, that's inspiring
Yeah.
because I did see him struggle for many, many years, being able to let go of who he once
Mm.
was. And it is hard, absolutely. And also I feel like now I'm learning that, okay, it's hereditary. This is a genetic, thing that's going on. And there are those blessings.
Mm.
I'm now a published author, a dream that I'd had internally, hadn't
Yeah.
really vocalized externally. I have been able to spend the last 2 years that my daughter has been home before she goes to college. I'm present.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
just, and I've worked their whole lives. So I was home the summer before my son went to college. I got to spend some time with him. Not that they want to spend much time with me, but just knowing that I'm here
Right.
and being present. I don't know. It's like when they are little and you're getting ready to send them out off to kindergarten into the school system or whatever, and you're like, please take care of my baby, and you have all that time. Like I got some, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I love your outlook on that and the spirit you have because there's a quote that I like, and that's that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And
That's
that
beautiful.
doesn't just mean the roses and the
Yeah,
rainbows, right? It means the other stuff too, like the
yeah,
physical challenge. It's happening for you. So it's up to us to figure out what is that for, right? And for
yeah,
you to find, okay, well, now I have these blessings because of this. I think that's such a great outlook that we can share with our community.
yeah, yeah.
Right? Like whatever happened that maybe wasn't great today, but it's happening for you. It's up to us to figure out what is that for.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And how when you do have those times that you do, we all, like you said, we all get down, we all have we have to embrace all the emotions.
Sure.
Like you said, it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows all the time. And then giving ourselves permission to have grace during
Hmm.
those times and then finding those positive flip side of coming out of it and embracing well, like I said before, like on the days that I can't do the things that I plan, well, what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think it's like you said, like going back to being in our 50s, it's just perspective. Like our
Mm,
perspectives change in
yeah.
such a good way, such a good way.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's another quote I read somewhere that said, if you think in your 50s like you did in your 20s, you wasted 30 years. Right.
That's so
You
true.
know, but I love it. And it's what you've talked about is embracing the changes, embracing your development, excuse me,
Mhm.
as a human, and not being so stuck on who we thought we were going to be or where we thought we were going to be that we can't grow into where we are.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's I'm not to self pitch at all, but the current book I'm working on, that's kind of the basis of it is the name of the book is For Better or Worse, and it's about these young newlyweds. They've only been married a couple of years, and he's a police officer. She works as a CNA. He's the serve and protect. She's
Yeah.
the caregiver. While on duty, he is in a car
Mm,
accident. A teenager who was texting and driving hits him, and unfortunately, the teenager passes and he sustains a traumatic brain injury. And so the the core of the book is they had their future planned for themselves.
mm,
Something happens. Something happens and changes what your plans are. So from this day forward, for better or worse, what are you going to do? How, like, so it's their journey as a young couple. And we all face those moments, those times in our lives where it's like, okay, well, that didn't go the way I planned. So now what do I do?
yeah.
And it's like all the time. And I've seen it even, it's hard when you see your kids go through it because you want to protect them for
Sure.
everything. And at the same time, like, this is a life lesson.
Necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
When
not easy, but you gotta.
No, I love it for better or worse. Wendy, I think it's a fantastic way to wrap up the episode and
Mhm.
a great message for our community is, yeah, what are we going to do for better or for worse on what life handles us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where can our community stay in touch with you, Wendy? Where can we find your books?
So my books are on all the platforms, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the other places, Goodreads, and my website is wendyhallerauthor.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, the same, Wendy Haller Author. So I'm around.
Wendy, thank you so much for allowing us to honor sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a pleasure and such a great conversation. I feel like I feel like I gotta go save the world now. It was
Well, I love it.
so inspiring,
I love it. Thank you so
right?
much, Wendy. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.